I gave myself a nice complicated title tonight, Aleister Crowley and the Path to True Happiness, examining the role of occult orders today. And somehow I'm going to try and wrap all that together in the next 50 minutes or so. Doing it the logical way, which is going to the end and coming back to the middle, occult orders are very different to other kinds of fraternities, study groups, meditation circles, what have you. Anyone who enters an occult order takes an oath, and the whole order itself makes an oath. It's where the outside world sees occultists as making a pact with the devil, we see ourselves making a pact with the totality of cosmic consciousness. And because of that willingness to create that contract, certain things happen in response. The group is empowered to teach, to initiate, to open people in certain ways. How well it handles what it is given determines the final outcome. But if there is an honest effort to supervise those who come in, there is an honest effort to care about what happens to the people who come in, and above all, that the people running this thing make an honest effort of their own to continue their own private progress, so that they're not speaking from something they learned, but from something that they're learning all the time, then things of value come about. I can affirm that from personal experience in 16 years in one order. I can affirm that from personal experience with the starting of a new one. I don't know that you can get rid of the presence of the Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn in Western occultism. Even if you look at something like chaos magic, it was largely created in reaction to the Golden Dawn structures and systems and categorization. And the Golden Dawn just dominates all of Western occult reasoning, Western occult structures, Western occult aims. It had huge ambitions. Crowley said the order failed to initiate. I think a fairer thing to say would be that the Golden Dawn failed to complete initiation. Because Crowley was thinking, if you have not got to the point where you've had this experience of the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel, or that being a set of words that are quite misleading in terms of what actually occurs, then you haven't really completed the initiation. My thought on that is, Aleister, you were right, yet. If you got in Zen the minority sect, Rinzai, which is you just keep battering through those koans, you just keep on doing crazy stuff with the Zen master telling you crazy things, until one day the flash happens and you're there. You've had Kensho. You also have in Zen the Soto school and other subsects of that, which are much more gradual, bring you through with a less wrenchingly arduous curriculum, but still in the end deliver a life-transforming result. You see the same thing with the Tibetans. They've got the short path. You get onto the Dzogchen stuff, and if you really stick with that, at the end of this lifetime you could be enlightened, which is really cool, but what if you found that you were better suited to a slower progression through the system, that you actually made greater gains for yourself and a greater sense of attainment was the result if you followed something slow? I think there's something to be said for following a system derived from the Golden Dawn, which is the mother, the fountain of all of this stuff, that allows you to move at a somewhat slower rate and perhaps sets the bar initially lower. This would be in comparison to the AA, which is the Astron Argon, if you believe one school of people, and the Argenteum Astrum, if you believe those who believe Kenneth Grant's translation of the name. Either way, they both come out to AA, they both mean Silver Star. But that is meant to be something you do as an absolute grind straight up the mountain. Very rigorous discipline, starting with intense pranayama practices right at the beginning. I've tried both, and while I don't knock the AA, and I know some remarkable people who've attained remarkable results through it, I found that all the time I was getting this personal nudge of, that's not the thing that you're best at, that's not where you belong. Which is a personal reason why I'm back with this thing of a Golden Dawn style temple. Now what's the real difference here? The simplest way of putting it is that you start the AA when you're already halfway through the Golden Dawn system. Its neophyte grade is essentially functionally equivalent to the 5-6, to the Tiphereth grade of the Golden Dawn system.
Hello.
Hey, come in. So initially when Crowley and George Cecil Jones began the AA, they were automatically dealing with a whole bunch of people who'd been through the Golden Dawn already, had a fair bit of training available to them. They knew something about how to do magic, how to do invocation, how to do all of that stuff, and he thought they could just pick up and run with it. The AA took a lot longer to launch than that. This goes back to 1906. And I don't think anyone did anything very seriously in the AA till after World War I, when Crowley had Cefalù, the Abbey of Thelema. And people could actually go and study in a secluded situation and really get the intensive training that produces the kind of results AA can do. Golden Dawn type systems have always been much more geared towards simple householder lifestyles. If you are in a Golden Dawn system, it's assumed that you are living a very outwardly a very mundane or everyday existence, and you are doing your practices perhaps with a different demand on yourself. But the funny thing is that the psychology allows you to let more things work alchemically behind the scenes with the Golden Dawn approach. It is slower and steadier and opens things in a more, if you like, organic manner. In my own experience, I'm sure there are AA initiates who would say absolutely no, but I'm saying what my own experience was here. So that's kind of where we're coming from with the order. Trying to offer something that can definitely bring you to the threshold of a gnosis, an opening, an awakening, something that is going to be transformative. And it does that in a graded but increasingly intensive series of degrees. Not everyone makes it through the system. Some people find that even this is way more than they expected. Or they get to a certain point and say, this is what I need, this is what I want, I'm simply going to say that's sufficient for now or for this lifetime. Again, just saying from personal experience, I found that over the years, I realized I was on something that was going to continue my whole life. It didn't matter the way it did when I started out, that I had not had some triumphant apotheosis and a fantastic cosmic consciousness catharsis that had opened all of the gates. A lot of that was coming bit by bit, drip by drip, simply because of the accrued alchemical intensity of the thing you go through. And I like what system we have, and I like teaching that. And I'm hoping that we are going to take root here and become one of the teaching institutions in this place, in this city. The role of occult orders. Now that's something a little different. It's plain to someone who's in an occult order. They've decided, I want a particular experience, I want a certain kind of knowledge, I want a certain kind of illumination, I want the doors to open, I want the visions to come. And for anyone who pursues the studies, yes, all of those things come at various times. There is a much deeper understanding of who and what we are, greater acceptance of the shadow and light sides of our own nature, the opening to a realization of the nature of our true will, the essential truth of self. All of this stuff comes. But in the view of the larger society, we're a really strange anomaly. We don't fit with the mainstream. We've been able to come out from behind closed doors in recent years. It's not as subject to intensive critical scrutiny by our neighbors and by society at large. But we still are not part of the mainstream. And I think that's a good thing. I think that you need something that is always against the current. Society tends to congeal at certain points and at certain levels, and it doesn't find ways to break past them. Occult orders set up a small society of their own. As I said before, you make this contract with universal consciousness, and if you do that one right, something happens. And frequently, not always, but frequently, people who've been through initiation find a confirmation of that very soon after initiation is given. It doesn't mean that the full vision of, I now know the essential truth of being has come to you, but there is something that will happen that just says a major event occurred. Quick personal anecdote, I took my own initiation in summer of '95, felt really great the next morning, got a phone call from the woman who looked after my ailing mother in England to say that that same afternoon I was initiated, my mother had been taken into hospital in a coma and was going to be dying in the next few hours. Now, this wasn't entirely unexpected. She'd been ill for a long time, was fading. The fact that she went into the hospital the same afternoon I took to be a little more than vaguely coincidental. Something was being said. This woman who was at this point suffering and feeling out of sorts with the universe and just wanted to be done with it, had somehow been able to catch the wave of whatever passed through me and felt released to go on to whatever comes after mortal existence. And I've seen other people have things as well. They don't have to be somebody dying. It doesn't have to be identified with death. This was a woman who was 78, who had been failing for at least a year, year and a half, and was no longer able to talk coherently, and so on and so on. It was a freeing event, a liberating event that happened. But there are the signs that come when the work is done properly, when the initiation is done with sincerity, and an awareness of just what it is that you're doing. There's a bigger reason that is far less easy to pin down, I